Date today, Monday, March 7th. First thing on the agenda is bill introductions. Do we have one? Go ahead.
Mitch DePriest with 1861 Consulting. I have a bill to introduce with RS 3481. It's a bill that exempts satellite and streaming services from franchise fees on behalf of Dish and DirecTV.
Any questions? Any objections? Bill's introduced. You might make sure Michael has that. I think that's a bill that Derek Hines been working on. Michael? Derek Hines, that's the bill he wanted introduced. I have a bill introduction. It's 22 RS 3406, and that's dealing with medical marijuana. Any questions? Any objections? Oh, Senator Hildebrand.
I'll object at the hearing.
Okay, any objections? Not seeing any of the bills introduced. Are there any further bill introductions? Not seeing any. Let's go ahead and take up the minutes before we dive into working the bills. Michael, you sent them out last week, right? Last Friday? I don't know if everybody's looked over them, but do we have a motion for them? We'll just take up one motion. Can we do it for all the minutes? Do we have a motion? Senator Longmire makes the motion. Hildebrand seconds the motion. Any questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Against, nay. Okay, it passes. Okay, we'll move on to possible action on bills. Let's start off with Senate Bill 418. Jason, you want to just kind of bring us back up to speed on 418 and what that bill was?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Senate Bill 418 was a bill amending a statute that was enacted in last year's election legislation. This is the statute that prohibits the governor and the judicial branch from modifying the enforcement of election laws and requiring the Secretary of State to get LCC approval before entering into any consent decree or other judicial agreement that alters election procedures or the enforcement of election laws. The bill, Senate Bill 14, amends that statute to also prohibit the governor or any other officer of the executive branch from entering into any judicial agreement or consent decree or any other agreement with any third party without getting prior approval of the Legislative Coordinating Council.
We had one proponent, I believe, and I think we had a kind of, we had an opponent, but it was not the typical opponent, we'll say that. It was someone that sent some stuff back that was, I don't know, trying to be funny, I believe. What is the pleasure of the committee on this bill? Okay, Senator Hildebrand, I'll let you pass that amendment out and explain it. Thank you. Did she get an amendment? Yeah, 418. Senator Hildebrand's got the floor. He has an amendment. Go ahead and explain your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And what this amendment does is the original bill as written has the Legislative Coordinating Council as giving the agreement. This amendment would change that to the legislature while the legislature is in session and to the LCC, Legislative Coordinating Council, when the legislature was not in session. So the primary would be the legislature, secondary would be the LCC.
Okay. Do you have a second on your amendment? Peterson seconds. Questions or comments? Senator Reichman?
Thank you. Sounds like a good amendment to this. By our Constitution, the legislature is supposed to be in charge of elections. And it's just kind of confirming that of changing dates or anything like that. We saw that happen a lot across the nation in the last election. So if I understand this right, and if they're not in session, then it goes to the coordinating council. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Oh, Senator Longmire?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with this amendment, does that mean it takes legislative approval through a bill to settle any kind of court action, lawsuit, to come to a settlement agreement? Is that,
Go ahead,
am I
Jason.
understanding this correctly?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the legislative approval could be by resolution, by concurrent resolution, similar to how the legislature ratifies state tribal gaming compacts by resolution.
But it's still going to take action by the legislature, which may not be very timely in some cases.
Yes, it would still require the resolution to go through the normal legislative process and be voted on by both chambers.
Okay, we got a amendment. Any further questions or comments? Senator Hosher?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have some concerns with this bill. Additionally, well, part of that is derived from the fact that, if I remember correctly, the proponent is the same organization, OSP, that we've had some questions about in regard to their intent. I don't believe they're a Kansas-based organization. But additionally, my other concern is the timing of when information was posted about this hearing. I've heard from several different individuals who indicate they would have supplied opponent testimony, but there wasn't notice.
We're on the amendment, not the bill. So I mean, if you got a problem with the amendment, but I mean, furthermore, we have groups that testify up here out of state all the time. I don't have a problem with that. Some of the times I think it's better if we attack the legislation and not the groups on the outside. I mean, to me, I love it when people see things that I don't see, like we did the election bill last week, adding UPS and FedEx. When people bring stuff like that, that's what I'm looking for as a legislator. But I mean, we're on this amendment and this language to adopt. If you want to have your comments on the bill when we get
Sure,
done with
and
this amendment.
I recognize we're on the amendment. The amendment is kind of tied directly to some of the important language in the bill, but I'll speak back up when we
Okay.
get back to the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions on the amendment? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Against nay? It passes. Want to be recorded? Nope. Okay, now we're back on the Senate Bill 418. Senator Hildebrand.
We don't have any other amendments, right?
Is there any other amendment? Nope. Go ahead. Senator Hildebrand.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I make a motion that we pass out Senate Bill number 418 as amended favorably for passage.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Senator Peterson, seconds. Questions or comments? Senator Hosher, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I do have concerns in the respect that people who use the website to get information about our hearings did not have enough time potentially to respond and submit opponent testimony. I've heard from several people saying they would have supplied testimony opposing this bill, but because of potentially some issues, did not receive appropriate notification. So I'm very concerned we don't have a complete picture in regard to Kansans who would have thoughts about the bill. Thank you.
I believe the bill was in the calendar in normal timeframe. I can't explain anything outside of that. It's posted outside the room, upstairs. We do our best with the calendar, but I mean, sometimes things move pretty quick, and this is early in the process. I mean, we still got plenty of opportunity to debate the bill and see it through the process. But I mean, I definitely, I know sometimes this process moves pretty quick. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. But Senator Frasco,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize for my tardiness. If Jason could just, the nut of this bill, so it's pertaining to the governor, the executive branch, if you could just share that with me real quick, thank you.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the bill amends a statute enacted last year. The underlying statute requires the Secretary of State to obtain prior approval by the Legislative Coordinating Council before entering into any judicial agreement that would modify election procedures and enforcement of election law. The bill expands that to require the governor and any executive branch officer to also get approval of the LCC before entering into any such agreement or any agreement with any third party. The amendment was adopted would require that approval by the legislature unless the legislature isn't in session, and then it would be by the LCC.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
if I may, so the carrier of the bill, or would it require to make what happen what you just stated? Would we have to do a special session if we weren't in session to do this?
go ahead, Jason.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, no, if the legislature is not in its regular session, the Legislative Coordinating Council could take up the matter at its next regularly scheduled meeting and approve or not approve the agreement.
Further questions or comments? Not seeing any. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Against nay? Passes. You guys want to be recorded?
No, it's kind of redundant.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I saved this comment because it's not for this bill specifically. It's for all bills that go through the legislative process. We've been hearing some people make comment that an outside the state entity is testifying on a bill or something like that. But just as a reminder to everyone that may not be aware, especially if you're listening online, the process to get a bill written and introduced has to go through a legislator. They have to sponsor that. So most likely, a legislator is working on an entity to come up with that bill language in that draft with the revisor's office. It isn't somebody outside the legislature coming up and having a bill drafted and being the one driving that. Sometimes it's a lot easier to have someone else. I know some legislators would prefer to have someone else testify than come and always testify, because we always have the opportunity to make comments here while we're hearing a bill or something. So I just want to make sure everybody was aware that people are not just introducing bills off of out of state or even in our state, just coming in and just introducing a lot of bills and that we're working on them, that they do have to be sponsored by a legislator. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move to 438. Is that in our file? Because I don't see it out. You got a copy of it? Why don't I have it? 418's done, so we're talking 438. You want to explain it? Jason?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Senate Bill 438 was a bill concerning election audits. First off, the bill creates a new law to require the Secretary of State to conduct audits in 4 counties in each odd-numbered year. Those counties are to be randomly selected. However, there are criteria for selection of the counties based on the voting age population of the counties. And the audit is to be for the previous 2 calendar years of elections conducted in such counties. The bill also amends existing law 25-3009, which is the statute that requires certain audits after elections, and would add to that list of audits that are be conducted at the county level, that in even-numbered election years, any federal, statewide, or state legislative race that is within 1% of the total number of votes cast, as determined by the Secretary of State, is to be audited, and that the audit shall be conducted in a manner so that 10% of all county precincts in the specified race with a minimum of one precinct in the county is to be audited. And that would go into effect on July 1st of this year.
Okay,
This was also a bill brought by the Secretary of State's office.
okay. What's the pleasure of the committee? Got an amendment? Go ahead, Senator Vasco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So to Jason, staff member Jason Long, so the audit is looking for what? The purpose of the audit is to find what?
I will defer to the Secretary of State's office, as they could probably address this better.
I'll let you address it.
Sorry. Should I start again, Mr. Chair?
Now, go ahead.
Okay. The second audit is if a race is very close on election night, we immediately audit more precincts to ensure that the public is assured that it's being reported correctly.
Go ahead, one quick follow-up.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Clay. So, we know on election night, they are delivering those final provisional ballots in the box from each election polling location. So would those provisional ballots be counted prior to this audit?
No, Senator, the audit is it's the election night results are what is being audited, and the audit would occur in the next few days. The provisional ballots have to be addressed separately because they aren't counted until the county canvass says to count them.
Okay, thank you.
Is that if the race is like within 1% or something like that, or?
Yes, Senator. The 1% was the standard we decided was a close race that needed extra auditing.
Okay. Is there an amendment? Go ahead, Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What this amendment will do is it will provide in statute that the little printed abstract off of the counting machines, once they're through counting, that abstract then would be available for if someone wanted to verify the abstract numbers versus what was reported, they would have an opportunity to review that abstract.
Okay, do we have a motion on your amendment?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second on the Hildebrand amendment? I'll second it for a sec. Okay. Questions on the Hildebrand amendment? Senator Reichman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm just not quite sure what this amendment does. When you talk about the abstract audit and all that kind of stuff, put it so I can understand it. I appreciate it, Senator. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senator. So whenever a tallying machine is used in the election cycle, at the end of that process, it prints out an abstract or a little, it looks just like a printed receipt that you get from if you go to the grocery store, but it will have the numbers of ballots that had went through the process. This would allow, if the public wanted to verify or to review, they would have the opportunity to look at that abstract. It doesn't tell you who voted or how they voted. It gives you the numbers that went through that machine.
Okay, thank you. So you're looking more for security and, that type of thing of, as far as how people are voting. Did we have any problems of anybody being denied these abstract numbers or anything like that? The slips, I mean. Thank you.
Thank you,
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Chairman. And currently, and Secretary of State or Jason can correct me if I am wrong, currently that is left up to each election clerk. They can either allow that or not. This would just put it in statute that if it is requested, then they would have to provide that. And it's not a copy or anything. They can't take that abstract out. They only get to come in and view that abstract. So it still stays in the custody of the election clerk.
Senator Fasco.
Mr. Chairman, that was my question.
Senator Longbine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't see a manner prescribed on how it's to be made to the public, but in the description that was given, so you've got to go to the county clerk's office to view that. Are we causing our county clerks a lot of problems if 150 people show up over the next 3 days wanting to see this?
Senator Hildebrand.
Mr. Chairman, that would be a possibility. One thing that we could do is redefine that and do a substitute to take that down just to the polling. Each elected or each person on the ballot gets to designate one polling person, and we could redefine that to where it's just that polling person if the committee prefers that method.
Let's pass this amendment, and then we could adopt that as a substitute, if that's all right. Senator Holscher.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They could if the election clerk allows them to do that, but the election clerk would still, they just have to allow it to be viewed. They don't even actually have to give them the abstract. So they just have to let them look at it. So if the county clerk allows them to get out their phone, that's a possibility, but each election clerk could not allow them to take out their phone.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Senator Reichman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're talking about the total from that machine, not each individual vote. I mean, I think it'd be easier if you're in that voting thing, you wanted to come out, keep it, or snap a picture. But you're talking about the whole total from that machine or from that precinct or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
That is correct. Not the actual ballots, it's just the receipt that shows the tally.
Okay. Further questions, comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Nay? Okay, I hear it passes. Okay, do you have a substitute motion to clean it up? Want a substitute motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll just make a conceptual motion instead of to the public that it has to be allowed to authorized poll agents. And the authorized poll agents would be the individual that a person on the ballot designates to monitor the elections for them.
Okay, we have a motion, a conceptual motion. Do we have a second? I'll second it. Any questions or comments? Senator Fasco.
Mr. Chairman and the Senator Hildebrand of the amendment, So why not just have like the precinct committee people, like a Democrat and a Republican, look at that? Because I'm confused, and will admit that. So when you say the designated person, that the candidate whose name is on the ballot, whoever they appoint to be their point person to look at that, is that what you're saying?
Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, so each candidate for office, when they are on the ballot, has an opportunity to designate a authorized poll agent. That poll agent has the opportunity to review or monitor the process for that individual. And if there's any questions or anything, they're able to be there and ask questions or anything like that. And this would make that receipt available to them to review as well.
Not all of them would be Democrats, or it might be primaries.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, so just to follow up on your response. So you said the candidate could appoint a poll worker. So did you say a poll worker? Oh, okay.
Right now, go ahead. Senator
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a poll agent, not a poll worker, a poll agent.
Okay, further questions or comments? Senator Reichman.
I think I understand the amendment. I'm just trying to make sure I do.
Defining it a little bit.
Yeah. I guess my question is, being a candidate, what's the procedure that I can't, let's say I either want a poll agent or my best friend or whatever to check these abstracts. How do I go about, do I just call the county clerk or what's the procedure? Because I know it's not written, but I just want, there has to be some procedure that you go through.
Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you.
Give me a second. I think before, it's whatever the rules and regulations are set by the Secretary of State, but there is a process, and I am not for sure what that process is, but I believe it's before the election. Each candidate would have to let the election officer know who their authorized poll agent would be.
I think you have to file a document ahead of time. Okay, Clay.
Mr. Chairman, a little bit, I haven't seen the actual language of the amendment, but this may already be in statute. 254611D talks about taking the results off the tabulating machines and posting them as a public document for anyone to see. Now, I understand what Senator Hildebrand's getting at is having the poll agent being able to see it, and yes, candidates can appoint poll agents, precinct leaders are poll agents, and they can be in the polling place at the closing, stay after 7 p.m. and get the reading off the tapes on the machines. So this may be, I haven't, again, seen the amendment. It may be adding a little bit more to what's already in statute, but those tabulation results are public record already.
Okay. Senator Fasco.
Mr. Chairman, Clay, so currently we can have poll watchers, at a voting location. So what's the difference?
Again, Senator, I haven't seen the amendment. The poll agent can be in the polling place and then stay after it closes to get those initial results. They can also be at the county elections. Now, they can't interfere with the counting in the process, but they can get the information. And I realize in our election statutes, sometimes it's a little messy where things are, that there's a section on poll agents, then on the election equipment, there's a section on public records, and on the optical scanning section, there's another addition for making this a public record.
Al, have you looked at the amendment?
And
It's right there.
I haven't, Mr. Chair. From what I hear, there's no conflict with any existing law. We'd have no objection to it.
Okay, the conceptual amendment. Senator Reichman.
Well, it sounds like to me that we don't need this. That's already in the law that we have it. It's just adding on more paperwork or more digging in there.
Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The abstract and the receipt is actually never listed in the statute, so that gives the election clerk a little bit of levity, if you will, on deciding on whether or not to make that available. So this would put that actually in there.
Okay. Got a motion? Go ahead, Senator Reichman.
Well, the Secretary of State, what was he quoting from? Wasn't that statute book? I mean, it sounds like to me it's already, I guess I'm not under, I must really be not
Senator
understanding
Reichman?
this.
Or I'm sorry, Senator Hildebrand. I'm going back and forth so much. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is the wording that the Secretary of State quoted. Advanced voting ballots may be counted by the optical scanning equipment if they have been marked in a manner which will enable them to be properly counted by such equipment. If any advanced ballot is damaged or defective so that it cannot properly be counted by the optical scanning equipment, it shall be counted manually. I'm not sure, because that was 254611D. And then the return printed by the optical scanning equipment to which has been added to the return of write-in advance voting votes and manually counted votes shall constitute the official return of each precinct or voting area. Upon completion of the count, the return shall be open to the public. So that is advanced voting ballots, not the entire election, it looks like.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Against, nay? Passes. Okay, we have any more amendments, or do we have a motion on the bill? 438. Go ahead, Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion that we pass out Senate Bill number 438 as amended favorably for passage.
We have a motion. Senator Peterson seconds. Questions or comments? Not seeing any. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, nay? Passes. It's out. Okay, hang on. Okay, I believe that completes our work for today. We are adjourned. Thank you.